Let me tell you what my deep research and basically vision is.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is.
I'm not telling you nothing.
The aliens won't let it happen. Happening now, breaking.
Bernie Sanders is angry.
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
What are the tips? Give me some tips on how to work with Wes Anderson.
Be ready to speak very fast and very clearly, because that's definitely one key thing.
I will only tell the truth. I will only
Until you and 6 kids you barely know in wet bathing suits have surrounded 9 chimpanzees outside of a Wendy's. You probably really don't know yourself, okay?
Yep. And we back.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to your new favorite podcast and the best in political sports and paranormal news coverage. I'm your host, Wes Anderson, and this is In the Shed. This is episode 11, so whether you're back for more or finding us for the first time this week, hey, thanks for tuning in. It's early Friday morning, April 22nd, and I'm in a shed in the backyard of my home in Alabama. Also, I can hang out with you tools and talk about the latest headlines, stories, and rumors in the world of politics, sports, and the paranormal. Yo, my tools, my friends, my people, Ramesh, Meemaw, the whole gang, I missed you. I missed you, man. Did y'all miss me? My goodness. It has been a minute. It has been 28 days that we have been apart. My apologies for ghosting you. It was not planned. It was not you. It was me. It really was. It was me. I've been busy with work, family. Just busy, man. We're supposed to gather together here in the shed once a week. At least that's the plan anyway. But it has been 1 month since that has been a possibility for me. But I am back in the saddle, ready to grind this thing out together and grow our little show into something special. I'm happy to announce that we now have our very first sponsor. I'm just kidding. We don't have any sponsors, y'all. I'm just a dude in Alabama in a shed. That is a delayed April Fool's Day joke. We will get there. You just watch. We will get there. Hopefully a sponsor in India. A lot has happened since we've been together last. Gonzaga got throat punched in the NCAA championship game, losing their first game of the year to Baylor. Godzilla vs. Kong hit the big screen. My little man took his first steps. My baby Malachi took his first steps yesterday, so that's pretty dope. My wife and I successfully put together a trampoline for our 5-year-old, and our marriage is still intact. I laughed about 113 times at the way Shepard Smith reads the news over the last month. And a bird pooped on my head. Yeah, that happened. I'm going to share it with you. All my shedders, all my tools. Let me just be honest. A bird pooped on my head. It was a first for me, hopefully a last. I was walking out the door, about to take my daughter to school, having a great morning, feeling very chipper indeed. And I walked outside, and I felt something on the top of my head. And y'all, I had just got a haircut. Your boy's hair was perfectly coiffed. And I felt something, some type of moisture on the top of my head. And what I thought was, surely this is a bit of dew, morning dew falling from the tree and landing on my head. But as I turned my eyes and my gaze skyward, unfortunately, I was not under a tree. And in my heart of hearts, I knew what had happened. But I was in denial, y'all. I was in denial. So I walked back inside the house. I found my lovely wife, and I said, sweetheart, is there something on my head? Her response was laughter. She did not confirm or deny. She just broke into hysteria. And she laughed at me, y'all. For a solid 3 minutes, that woman who I love laughed at me. Because in fact, a bird had pooped on my head. I had to take a second shower that morning before work. I was late because a bird pooped on my head. And I don't know, I think it was a robin I'm just guessing. Robins are squatty birds, a little thicker in the belly, and this was quite a load. I'm going to say it was a robin. Started my morning chipper, got out the door, and a bird pooped on my head. Needless to say, that was not the way I wanted to start my day, and I should have known that that was an omen because the rest of my day was a little bit poopy. There was a guy that had a worse morning than me, however, since we have last been together. And this is the real reason you come to this show. If you want the real, if you want the news, if you want the stories that nobody else is talking about, you want all the coverage that matters most in our world today, you come to In the Shed with Wes. Turn off CNN, turn off Fox News, put your phone down, unless you're listening to us on your phone, then you pick it up. Come to In the Shed with Wes and you will get the real. There was a man that had a much worse morning than me because his wife was attacked by a bobcat. Did you see this video? You had to have seen this video, man. A bobcat attacked my wife. I'm telling you right now, if you haven't seen this video, pull out your Google machine and type in "a bobcat attacked my wife." Go watch this video. It is hilarity. I mean, if a YouTube video could win an Emmy, this one should get it because the story is compelling, it is crazy, it is hilarious, and this man had a much worse morning than I did. He probably wishes a bird would have pooped on his head. It would have been a lot easier to clean up and a little bit less dangerous as well. This man walked out of his house. He was having a good morning. He waved at his neighbor who was jogging by. He says to himself, "Oh, my car needs a wash." He put some brownies or something on top of the hood, and then a bobcat literally attacked his wife. Jumped right on her back. It had rabies, y'all. It had rabies. It jumped on her back. He ran around because she was screaming. He runs around the side of the car like, what's happening? He sees something on his wife's back. The man grabs it with his hands and picks it up. He walks around the car holding it up, examining it, and he says, "It's a bobcat." This man was holding the bobcat in his hands, holding it up to examine it. I don't know, maybe he thought it was a house cat, but he gets around the side of the car and he goes, "It's a bobcat," and then he just yeets it. The man just threw it. He just threw the bobcat across the yard. I mean, it came back towards him too. That's how the thing had rabies. You can't just yeet a bobcat across the yard, expect it to run away. It came back for seconds. That man drew his weapon. He had a weapon. The man was armed. PETA would not be proud, but the NRA would. The man was armed. He pulls a weapon and chases the bobcat into the forest. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. If you go back and watch the beginning of the video, like 4 seconds in, you can see the bobcat across the street in the neighbor's yard. And then it just like comes for his wife, just chases his wife. But this man, look, dude, your hands ain't the job, ain't designed for the job when it comes to fighting off a bobcat. That's a job for your feet. God gave you feet for a reason. You got shoes on, maybe even he had boots on, I don't know. But you kick the bobcat, okay? You knock it off your wife's back, you stomp it, you kick it. If that had been me, I would have choked the life out that bobcat attacking my wife. Ain't nobody hurting my wife. That's my shawty. I got her. 8 years of marriage, 10 years together. I got you. But this man was getting a lot of accolades online. People were saying, get you a man. Get you a man that will yeet a bobcat for you. That's true love. So if you haven't seen that video, you got to find it. Look, I didn't have a good morning. A bird pooped on my head. This man went toe-to-toe, or I guess hand-to-hand, with a bobcat. A bobcat attacked my wife! Oh, man. All right, enough of that. Let's get to some comments and corrections from last episode. Keystone 93, Hanobia 72, no Bigfoot invites as of yet, but now that we've had a month to rest here on In the Shed with Wes, we've caught our second win. We're going to keep on trying. We're not giving up. Keystone, Hanobia, whichever of you would like to have us, whichever of you would like to bring us in and have us do an episode of In the Shed with Wes live at your event, push that Bigfoot memorabilia for you, that paraphernalia, that Sasquatch paraphernalia. You can reach us by emailing the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. We had half of our Final Four right. We predicted Gonzaga and Houston to make the Final Four. We whiffed on Baylor and UCLA. Underestimated Baylor. We didn't see UCLA coming. We were correct, though, in saying that from the very beginning of the year all the way through, we said We could not see Gonzaga going undefeated. They were the best team all year, but it is an incredibly difficult task to manage a 32-game season without losing once, and Gonzaga did just that. They lost once. Our last episode, episode 10, was our first with guests, so shout out to my sister Bethany and my brother-in-law Russell. It was a ton of fun having you guys in the shed and on the show. I'm proud to say that episode 10 has now become our second most listened to episode ever, only trailing our very first episode, episode 001. Somehow, some way, even without being on the air for a month, we have continued adding tools to the shed. Our number of listeners has continued to grow. We're up to 71 listeners in India now. India, you make up 21% of our listenership. 21%. Way to go, India. That's pretty dope. That's pretty cool. We also have grown to 12 listeners in France, 7 in the UK. We're holding steady at 6 listeners in Australia, 4 in Canada, 3 in Greece and in Spain, 2 in New Zealand, and also 2 in Mexico. I want to give a big shout out to you, our listeners, for hanging in there with us, for continuing to spread the word about our show, especially you, India. Keep telling people about the show. Let's build this thing together. That's all the comments and corrections for this week. Let's get to some listener emails. Ronnie from Detroit writes, Bueller, anybody home? Did something happen to the shed? No, Ronnie, the shed is fine. It's as beautiful as ever. We back in the shed. It's been a crazy month. Sorry for leaving you hanging, but we're back and we'll be having new episodes posting again, hopefully every week. So check back with us. Jade from Florida says, loved the show with guests. Bethany and Russell were great. Will you have them back? Yeah, that's the plan. The plan is hopefully to have them back maybe on another episode. We had them for episode 10, so I don't know, maybe episode 50, maybe before then. But I enjoyed having them on the show. We will try to have guests from time to time, and I'm glad you enjoyed the show with them on. Jack from Iowa asks, are you planning to have guests on the show in the future? Yes, we are, Jack from Iowa. Actually working on a possible guest for next week. So we may have a surprise guest on next week's show. That's something, as we kind of have built this thing, that we intended to do all along. I think it's a lot of fun to go over the news with a guest, to have conversation together. And so check out next week's show for the possibility of a surprise guest. James from Texas writes, just found the show and I'm loving it. When will a new episode be coming out? Well, James, we're recording a new episode right now. I am in fact in the shed, and I'm recording a new episode, and it will be posted later today. So yeah, there you go. Brand new episode of In the Shed with Wes to kick off your weekend. You're welcome. And Ramesh from India, my boy, my guy Ramesh from India, my good friend, writes, Wes, 2 of my cousins and my brother-in-law are now listening to the show also. Keep up the good work. You keep up the good work, Ramesh. Right back at you, big dog. You supporting us like nobody's business. Other than Meemaw, you probably the best listener that we got. My boy Ramesh, this is his 3rd email. He's got his brother-in-law and 2 cousins listening to the show. 21% of our listenership comes from India. Only trailing the United States, but hey, India's coming up fast. They coming up quick. They went from 5% to 8% to 15%, and now 21% of our listeners are from India. How cool is that? I love India. I done told y'all, my goal is to get on a billboard in India. That's my goal. My face, a microphone, and a big sign that says In the Shed with Wes Anderson. I want to be famous in India. Let's go, Ramesh. Help your boy out. Make it happen. And hey, one day, we gonna get you in the shed. And you gonna be a featured guest. We're gonna get you to America. We're gonna get you into Alabama. You're gonna get in the shed. And we're gonna chop it up. Because you my number 1 fan. Well, number 2, me my number 1. But you my number 2 fan. And I appreciate you. That's all the listener emails from last month. Wow, last month. It's actually not all of the emails. There's about 15, but that's all the ones we have time to read today. If you have thoughts that you want to share about one of the stories talked about on our show, or you just want to say hi, you can reach us by emailing the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Again, that's intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. All right, enough of that. Let's get to the news. And let's hit the headlines. Senate's lack of advice is leading to consent to Biden's radical agenda, writes CBN. From the Epoch Times, CDC looking at whether masks are still needed outdoors. Anti-hate crimes bill spurred by attacks on Asian Americans passes Senate overwhelmingly, says MarketWatch. The George Floyd verdict echoes through Black America, according to Time magazine. And finally, Republicans' opening bid on infrastructure is about a quarter of the size of Biden's plan, and that is from Vox. Our first story in the world of politics, 77 inmates at Iowa prison given overdoses of COVID-19 vaccine, officials say. Dozens of inmates in Iowa prison were given overdoses of a COVID-19 vaccine, officials said. 2 medical staff members from the Iowa Department of Corrections incorrectly administered the vaccine developed by U.S. pharmaceutical giant Pfizer and its German partner BioNTech to 77 inmates at the Iowa State Penitentiary, a maximum security prison for men located in Fort Madison, about 90 miles southwest of Iowa City. The dosages given exceeded the amount recommended by the vaccine manufacturer, according to Cord Overton, spokesperson for the Iowa Department of Corrections. All right, I'm going to stop there real quick. First of all, an overdose of the vaccine, you say? An overdose of the vaccine, you say? That's scary. That's scary to me. And 2 staff members from the Iowa Department of Corrections incorrectly administered the vaccine? Who are these staff members and why are they administering a vaccine? Do they not have doctors for that? Did a doctor not come in to the prison and do the vaccines? A nurse? A registered nurse? Somebody? Also, I love how the Department of Corrections spokesperson's name is Cord Overton. If I was going to make up a person, like let's just say I made a mistake, like maybe accidentally overdosing 77 people with a COVID-19 vaccine. If I made a mistake like that and I needed a scapegoat and I was going to make up somebody that wasn't even real, somebody that does not exist, and I was going to come up with a name for that person, I would come up with Cord Overton. I'm going to pass you to our official spokesperson, Mr. Cord Overton. Here you go. Hello, I'm Mr. Cord Overton. I mean, that sounds like a made-up name. Cord Overton. Cord Overton. Upon learning of the error, the Iowa Department of Corrections immediately contacted Pfizer and the Center for Disease Control and Prevention for guidance. Upon learning of the error. How did they learn of the error? Were dudes dropping like flies? Were they getting sick? I don't know. Both Pfizer and the CDC said not to expect any major side effects, but that the affected inmates should be closely monitored for at least 48 hours, according to Cord Overton. Not to expect any major side effects, but they do need to be monitored for 48 hours. Maybe they will have superpowers. Maybe they will have strength or be able to see through walls. Or maybe, just maybe, COVID will never affect any generation of their family for all eternity. The affected inmates have been notified of the error, I bet they're happy, and are being closely monitored by medical staff. The Iowa Department, wait, they're being monitored by medical staff. Is that the same staff that messed up the dosage? Because I don't want them to monitor me. I do not want them to monitor me at all. The Iowa Department of Corrections plans to conduct medical wellness checkups routinely for several days. So far, the only side effects that the inmates have experienced are those commonly associated with the Pfizer vaccine, says Cord Overton. If he really exists. The Iowa Department of Corrections has temporarily halted administration of the two-dose vaccine at the Iowa State Penitentiary pending an investigation into the matter. The 2 staff members who made the error have been placed on administrative leave in the meantime, according to Cord Overton. Currently, 200 inmates at the Iowa State Penitentiary have received their first shot, and 48 inmates have received their second shot. Across the entire Iowa Department of Corrections, 1,964 inmates have received their first dose and 214 inmates have received their second dose, according to Cord Overton. That seems fishy to me. 1,964 inmates have received their first dose and only 214 have received their second dose. You need to get on the ball, Mr. Overton, or whoever you really are. Cord Overton. That's unfortunate. Nobody should be overdosed with a vaccine. The vaccine's supposed to keep you safe, and here they are being overdosed with it. I hope that they are okay. Even people who are in prison are people. They're people too. They have value. They matter also. And Mr. Overton and whoever else is involved in this, you need to do better. You need to do better. Our next story in the world of politics is a follow-up on a piece that we did a few episodes ago. Brother of Honduran president sentenced to life in prison in drug case. The brother of Honduras President Juan Orlando Hernandez was sentenced to life in prison Tuesday after he was convicted at a trial that a prosecutor said exposed him as a central figure in one of the world's largest and most violent drug conspiracies. Juan Antonio Tony Hernandez, a former Honduran congressman, was sentenced in Manhattan federal court by U.S. District Judge P. Kevin Castile, who also ordered him to forfeit $138 million. Dang. That man had $138 million to forfeit? Whew. Hernandez was convicted in October 2019 of charges that carried a mandatory minimum sentence of 40 years in prison. Assistant U.S. Attorney Matthew LaRoche characterized the crimes as state-sponsored drug trafficking. He called Hernandez the central figure in one of the largest and most violent cocaine conspiracies in the world, and said that Hernandez for 15 years fueled a flood of cocaine shipments into the United States by paying millions of dollars to top Honduran officials like his brother. LaRoche said Hernandez's actions had turned Honduras into one of the most dangerous places in the world. Hernandez, he added, turned to drug dealing even though he grew up well off. He said Hernandez can't point to poverty, lack of opportunities, or a need to support his family. He did it because he was greedy, the prosecutor said, adding that Hernandez has shown no remorse. Hernandez's lawyer, Peter Brill, had argued for leniency and mercy for his client, saying the U.S. should focus anti-drug trafficking efforts on the voracious appetite of its citizens for drugs. Way to pass the buck. Way to pass the buck. For 15 years, this man was importing tons of cocaine into the United States, paying off officials, working with his own government, and his lawyer's like, hey, if people didn't want drugs, he would have nobody to sell to, so really they're at fault, you know? All the drug addicts, it's their fault. So he shouldn't have to be in jail for so long. Not a winning argument. Brill said Hernandez feels that the witnesses who testified against him were not only self-motivated, but were motivated against him to make up as much as they could to ruin his life and the life of his family, and have succeeded in doing so. In court papers, prosecutors had argued for a life sentence, citing Tony Hernandez's criminal history and saying he transported at least 185,000 kilograms of cocaine, a staggering amount of poison that he helped import into the United States. They said he also sold weapons to drug traffickers, some of which came from Honduras's military, and controlled drug laboratories in Colombia and Honduras as well. Between 2004 and 2019, the defendant secured and distributed millions of dollars in drug-derived bribes to Juan Orlando Hernandez, former Honduran President Porfirio Lobo Sosa, and other politicians associated with Honduras's National Party, prosecutors wrote. His brother served as the leader of Honduras's Congress before assuming the presidency in January 2014. They alleged that among those bribes were $1 million from notorious Mexican kingpin Joaquin El Chapo Guzman to Juan Orlando Hernandez. President Hernandez has repeatedly denied any ties to drug traffickers, as has Lobo, whose son is currently serving a 24-year drug trafficking sentence in the U.S. also. In an audio recording sent to his staff, which the Associated Press obtained, the president said his brother's conviction is hard for the family and hard for me personally. I find it outrageous. I find it unbelievable that false testimony by confessed killers could have been heard and given weight in this way, the president continued, citing Hernandez's progress in reducing violence as evidence of his stance against organized crime. Or maybe it's consolidation. You ever think about that? He's cracking down on all the criminals so that he can be the biggest criminal. I watch a lot of Law and Order. I know how this goes. Call me Elliot Stabler. In court on Tuesday, Tony Hernandez looked pale and downcast. When the defendant was given a chance to speak, he complained about his lawyers, saying he hardly saw them and they barely responded to his emails. I feel I have been lied to, he said through a translator. As Hernandez was led from the courtroom, a spectator yelled out, "Criminal, just like your brother." Outside the courthouse, about 80 people with signs critical of the president of Honduras loudly protested. So this is a follow-up story. We talked about this a while back. The president of Honduras may be in some trouble. He might be in some trouble. His brother has just been sentenced to life in prison for drug trafficking. The evidence is overwhelming. He reportedly brought 185,000 kilos of cocaine into this country, made deals with El Chapo, sold weapons from Honduras's army to drug traffickers. This, the president's brother. He might be in some trouble. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with this story. We will follow it. Now, I am curious to see how the Biden administration will respond, if they will put sanctions on Honduras, if they will look to depose the president there. We have deposed people in other countries for far less. So it will be interesting to see what happens with the nation of Honduras, a place that I have been and enjoyed my time at, but whose president appears to be a criminal. Our next story, U.S. charges CEO of company selling encrypted devices to drug traffickers. So we're going from one drug trafficking story to another drug trafficking story. The U.S. Department of Justice has announced an indictment against the head and associate of a Canada-based company that allegedly supplied custom encrypted phones to international drug traffickers. In just the second case of its kind, CEO Jean-Francois Ypes and former distributor Thomas Herdman of Sky Global, that just sound like an evil company. Sky Global. That just sound like they up to something. Like y'all up to no good. You name your company Sky Global, you're telling on yourself. You hustling backwards because you sound like an evil syndicate. And apparently they are. In just the second case of its kind, CEO Jean-Francois Ypes and former distributor Thomas Herdman of Sky Global were charged with conspiracy to violate the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, also known as RICO. Warrants have been issued for their arrests. The RICO law is typically used to combat organized crime and was previously used against another encrypted phone company called Phantom Secure. Like, hey, if you're going to have a company that distributes specially encrypted phones to drug traffickers, can you pick a less ominous name? Sky Global, Phantom Secure. How about like the Happy Company, or We Feed People, or Yay America? Pick something that people aren't going to think is a nefarious organization. You name yourself Sky Global. You name yourself Phantom Secure. You're just asking to be investigated by the Popo. Come up with a better name. Motherboard reports that the DOJ's announcement follows a crackdown in Europe that saw local law enforcement obtain and decrypt almost 1 billion messages sent between Sky Global's customers. So apparently they were not very good at encrypting. The indictment, returned by a federal grand jury on Friday, alleges that Sky Global installed sophisticated encryption software on devices designed to help drug traffickers to evade police surveillance. The custom phones, which included iPhone, Google Pixel, BlackBerry, and Nokia handsets, allowed their users to communicate with each other in a closed network, with Sky Global routing their activity through encrypted servers located in Canada and France. Sky Global's alleged purpose was to facilitate an international drug trafficking operation that included the import and export of heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine. The narcotics were distributed in the U.S. and Canada, Australia, Asia, and Europe, but none in India, because my people in India are better than that. Ain't that right, Ramesh? I got you. I see you, big dog. While the encrypted communication system was also allegedly used to mask money laundering activities that included Bitcoin transactions on Sky Global's website. In order to hide their illicit enterprise, Sky Global's employees apparently set up shell companies to cloak the proceeds from sales of their encrypted software. In total, some 70,000 of the custom devices are in use worldwide, according to the DOJ. The indictment alleges that Sky Global generated hundreds of millions of dollars providing a service that allowed criminal networks around the world to hide their international drug trafficking activity from law enforcement, acting U.S. Attorney Randy Grossman said in a statement. I feel bad for Randy. Randy's name is Randy Grossman. That's sad. That's unfortunate. Change your last name to Randy Johnson, Randy Smith, anything but Grossman. I feel bad for you, Randy. But apparently you're good at your job because you caught these drug traffickers at Sky Global who gave themselves away by naming themselves Sky Global. And for comment on this story, we're going to go to our official spokesperson, Mr. Cord Overton. This groundbreaking investigation should send a serious message to companies who think they can aid criminals in their unlawful activities. Because Randy Grossman ain't having it. Randy Grossman gonna put you in the clink. Randy Grossman gonna be on you. Randy Grossman gonna take care of it. And our final story in the world of politics this week comes from my neck of the woods. Married Alabama Secretary of State John Merrill finally admits affair. John Merrill, a Republican who has promoted himself as a family values conservative, admitted on Thursday a 3-year extramarital affair with Cesare McPherson. His admission came a day after he told a local radio station that her claims were baseless, describing her as a stalker who harassed him. McPherson, a 44-year-old legal assistant from Montgomery, revealed the affair to an online blog, National File, saying it started in November 2017 and ended in November 2020. She described in vivid detail her encounters with the Secretary of State. Yo, I just said the Secretary of State. That would be a much more dope position. The Secretary of State. Secretary of State, I should say. In one recording, McPherson asks Merrill if the last time they were together was the last time ever. Well, it was a pretty good day, Merrill is heard telling her. When she asks again if that's the last time ever, he replies, it's supposedly the last time ever. Yo, this man right here, this is a God-fearing, conservative man, right? He's having this 3-year affair, and she's like, is this the last time? And he says, I had a great day. And she's like, yeah, but is this the last time? And he says, it's supposedly. She tells him, you know it's not going to be. Merrill said that he hoped to draw strength from God to end the affair. I'm not able to stay away from you, so that's the reason why I have to have help in order to do that. The help is coming from the Lord, Merrill said. Ooh, Merrill. Mr. Merrill, don't you bring the Lord into this. This is not the Lord's fault. This is a you problem. You do need the Lord. Apparently you need a lot of them. But this is a you thing, big dog. You already went against your marriage, so you've already done it. You can't take that back. You can't change it, McPherson said. I can't take anything back. I can't change anything. All I can do is what I can do from today forward, he responded. Local news website AL.com played the full audio to Merrill, and he finally confessed. So this man was accused of having an affair, and he was like, nah, not me, I'm a good dude. Nah, I go to church, fam. I'm there every Sunday. This lady bothering me. She's stalking me. I don't even know her. And then AL.com was like, we have a 17-minute recording of you guys describing in detail your relationship. And then he's like, yep, I have made mistakes. Yes, I have. I have messed up, and I am sorry for that. Typical. On Thursday, AL.com released a portion of the 17-minute clip. McPherson said that she initiated the relationship with Merrill by contacting him through social media. I started it, sending messages. For some reason, I just got bored one night and I was sending the text messages and I said, maybe we should go have lunch or something, she said. And he said, or something. And I was like, okay. So it was from November until January. We would just send text messages back and forth all the time. And then in July 2019, and then he'd come over Sunday night, Monday night, sometimes Tuesday nights if his wife didn't come into town and stay in the apartment with him because he would have to be with her then. And mostly Wednesday and Thursday, Sunday, Monday, Wednesdays, Thursdays. And then if he had a weekend, I stayed at his house twice. Good night. This lady, he would come over Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, sometimes on Sundays, twice on Tuesdays, but sometimes all days of the week, but sometimes, and then he would be with me, but then when his wife was in town, he's not with me, but mostly he was with me. Whew. McPherson also alleges that Merrill would often make racist remarks about African Americans. He might act like he likes black people, but he's really racist. Real bad racist. He would say the colored folks. That's what he called them. He was loved by all the coloreds, as he would say. And they go around thinking everything is supposed to be theirs and given to them and all this and all that. The black people should be appreciative, he would say. Merrill, who initially denied allegations of an affair and accused McPherson of stalking and harassing, reversed himself and admitted that they did indeed have an inappropriate relationship, according to AL.com. Merrill was expected to run for the U.S. Senate seat from Alabama that is being vacated by the retiring Senator Richard Shelby in 2022. Merrill was likely to compete against the pro-Trump Congressman Mo Brooks. I will obviously not be a candidate for the United States Senator, nor will I be seeking any other elected position in 2022, because I think it's important to me to make sure that I become the man that I have been before, and that I am working to put myself in the position to be the leader that I have been before, as a husband and a father and a friend and an elected official, Merrill said in a statement. Nah. Look, this is a problem. We hold everybody accountable here on In the Shed with Wes. If you are an elected official, we hold you accountable. I don't care if you're Republican, if you're Democrat, if you mess up, if you're making decisions that let your people down, we're going to highlight it on here because you have been elected to a position and should be held to a higher standard. And I don't even like his admission. I don't even like the way that he says this. I do agree that he will obviously not be a candidate for U.S. Senate. But he says, I'm making sure that I become the man that I have been before. I'm working to put myself in a position to be the leader that I have been before, as a husband, as a father, as a friend, and an elected official. Nah, this is who you are. This is who you are. Look, let me teach you something real quick. People always do this. People always say this. Not just elected officials, but people in general. We always do this, right? When we make a mistake, when we make a choice, when we do something wrong, when we fail, when we fall, we have a tendency to say, I did this, but that's not who I am. And it's true that you are not your worst mistake, that one mistake should not define you for all of time and eternity. That's true. But if you engage in a certain pattern, if you make the same mistake over and over and over, be honest. Be honest. That is who you are. That is what type of man you are. That is what type of husband you are. It might not be who you want to be, John Merrill, but that's who you are. And rather than just say, I made this mistake and it's not who I am, change comes from saying, this is who I am and it is not who I want to be anymore. And so I'm going to work hard to overcome that, to change that, to put safeguards in place, to be better, to do better. So, listeners, all my tools, look, self-awareness and self-accountability are a huge part of growth. If you're not where you want to be, if you're making mistakes, if you're messing up, if you have unhealthy patterns that are part of your life, if you fall, if you backslide, don't make excuses. Don't say, this ain't who I am. Say, hey, this is who I am. Admit it to yourself and say, this is not who I want to be. And if this is not who I want to be, then I gotta do some things in order to change. John Merrill was elected Secretary of State of Alabama in 2014, re-elected in 2018. Alabama law places a 2-term limit on the office. So he is out of public office and probably will be. I don't imagine that he'll be able to restart a campaign for any office anytime soon. And there's a few things happening in this story. So this came out not because the woman involved necessarily went public against John Merrill, but there was actually some political rivals that had a hand in this. I'm giving you the scoop because I'm here in Alabama. I kind of know what's going on. Roy Moore, you might recognize that name, Judge Roy Moore. He was running for office in Alabama against Doug Jones for a Senate seat. He did not win because there was all these reports that came out from back in the day when he was in his 30s that he was pursuing relationships with underage girls. And so he did not win. It was close. He almost won, even with those reports. But he lost to Doug Jones, which was very rare that a Democrat would be elected in Alabama, but Doug Jones was elected. And Roy Moore's son, his son is actually the person that set up John Merrill's side chick with a reporter to give this story. Roy Moore and John Merrill do not like each other. They do not have a good history. So they were out to kind of sink his battleship, just like his dad's battleship was sunk. And they were successful. However, John Merrill is the one to blame here. If you put yourself out there as a leader, as a good Christian man, as somebody whose values are above reproach, and then you're doing dirt in the dark, it's going to come to light. And no one is to blame but him. He made the mistake. He did the deed. He carried on this 3-year affair, let his family down, let his constituents down, hurt his wife, his children, and he's facing the consequences. When you make mistakes, you have to face consequences, and he's dealing with that right now. So hopefully he'll have a little bit more self-awareness in the future. Hopefully he'll be more honest with himself than he was in that statement, and he'll grow and learn from it. And we have a chance to grow and learn too when we make mistakes, if we will be accountable to ourselves and to those that we have hurt. All right, that's all the politics for this week. Let's switch to the world of sports, and let's hit the headlines. Anthony Davis makes Lakers return, scoring 4 points and grabbing 4 boards. Hawks point guard Trae Young diagnosed with lateral ankle sprain and will miss at least 2 games. Seattle Seahawks re-signed Geno Smith to back up Russell Wilson. Steph Curry's 30-point run ends. West Virginia gives football coach Neil Brown a 2-year extension. And Western Michigan is hiring Kentucky assistant and former Auburn and UTEP head basketball coach Tony Barbie. Our top story on this episode in the world of sports is the hiring of Portland State's men's basketball coach. That's right, my tools. We're not talking NBA playoffs. We're not talking NFL draft. We're not talking Tom Brady. We're not talking LeBron James. We're talking Portland State men's basketball coach Jace Coburn. Because this man, who has been an assistant at Portland State for a while, was hired. He finally got his chance to be a head coach in college basketball. The man is living his dream, and he had an opening press conference. And as you know, here on In the Shed with Wes, we are the world's leader in coverages of coaches' opening introductory press conferences. Jace Coburn held his initial press conference as head basketball coach for Portland State University. And this is how it went.
The other thing is I'm hungry and passionate. I don't eat breakfast in the morning so I can come to work hungry. So when I get to lunch, I'm hungry. And that's just the kind of person I am. I know my 2003 Chevy Tahoe's got a lot of play this week so far, but it doesn't have AC and it doesn't have heat. And the reason I do that is so I can practice my mental toughness during the winter when it's cold, and I can practice my mental toughness during the summer when it's hot. That's the type of person I am.
Yo, my man Jace Coburn. This is an all-timer. This is an all-time press conference moment. This is the most extreme thing I think I've ever heard a coach say, other than the one we played with the Dolphins coach talking about eating people and breaking kneecaps. This man said, "I don't eat breakfast so that I come to work hungry." That is some true Steven Seagal type stuff right there. That is some true Chuck Norris level stuff right there. What kind of mind games is this man playing with? I don't eat breakfast so that I come to work hungry because that's the type of man that I am. That's the most intense. And then he goes on, and the man says, my 19, what did he say? Did he say 93 Tahoe? Whatever, his beater, his old car, it doesn't have AC and it doesn't have heat because I want to practice my mental toughness on the way to work so that in the wintertime I'm cold and in the summertime I'm hot so that I can be tough. Yo, you ain't got to prove your alphaness to us. We know. We feel you. We hear you, big dog. I see you. Jace Coburn. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's one of the best press conference moments I've seen in a long, long time. We are the world leader in opening press conference coverages. I don't know if this man is going to be a good basketball coach, but I want to watch his team. I want to see his practices. What does he make his team do? How in the world do they work on their mental toughness? What kind of drills are they doing in the summertime? What kind of conditioning things does he have them doing? Look, I had a truck that didn't have AC. I had a truck that didn't have heat. It was a 1996 Chevy S10 mint green, and it was not because I was working on mental toughness. It was because I was poor. It was because I was poor. And I'm not saying that Jace Coburn wasn't being honest, but hey, maybe the reason why you don't have air conditioners is because you couldn't afford it. Maybe. Maybe you've been grinding, you've been working hard, you've been waiting for this big moment, and now that you're the head coach, rather than making this speech, I would just go get AC. I would just go get the heater fixed, man. Go get you a new car. Payments ain't that expensive, bro. Why don't you lease you something? See if the university can help you out over there in Portland. This man said, I don't eat breakfast so that I come to work hungry. You sure you don't just need some groceries? I'll help you out. I'll send you $5. I'll send you some canned goods. I'll send you an address for a food pantry. You ain't got to come to work hungry physically, bruh. Jace Coburn, my dog, my dude. I'd love to have that man in this shed. Maybe that'll be our first official sports interview. Maybe we can get Jace Coburn on the phone, talk about it, chop it up together. That's classic. That's classic. That's going to be around for all eternity right there. I don't eat breakfast so that I can come to work hungry. And I don't have AC and I don't have heat in my vehicle so that I can work on mental toughness. And I don't wear shoes because my feet are tough. And I don't have a house because, like, bruh, you got a job now. Congratulations. Get your heater fixed. All I'm saying. We're going to stay in the world of college basketball, and we're going to talk NCAA championship game. Hey, last time that we were together, it has been so long ago, March Madness was still underway. It was a fun tournament. I think we were on the Elite 8 or Sweet 16 when we last talked. Now we have seen it all, and it's been a while, but we haven't had a chance to talk about it, so let's talk about it. Baylor ran all over Gonzaga, winning 86-70. It was never really close. Baylor jumped on Gonzaga from the opening tip and took it to Mark Few's Bulldogs, and we had it right. We had it right. I told you guys all season long Gonzaga was the best team. Gonzaga and Baylor were the two best teams year long, so even though we had typical upsets like we always do in March Madness, we wound up with the two best teams playing for the championship game. I did not have Baylor go into the championship game. I didn't quite buy into them or believe in them. I thought that they would be upset along the way. They were not, and they proved to be the better team head-to-head. Teague and Davion Mitchell were electric, 19 to 17 points for those guys. The players for Gonzaga were limited. Timmy and Kispert were held to 12 points each. Baylor finishes the year at 28-2, Gonzaga at 31-1. You know, a lot of the narrative since that game has been about how Gonzaga can never quite break through and how Mark Few still doesn't have a championship. But yo, they made the championship game. They broke through. This is not a little rinky-dink school. Mark Few has built something at Gonzaga. They just signed the number 1 overall prospect out of high school who is a 7'1" guy that can handle the ball, that can shoot. He's got to put on some weight and get some strength, but he looks like a baller. Gonzaga is getting the athletes now that they didn't used to get. They're getting transfers through the transfer portal that they didn't used to get. Mark Few and Gonzaga are going nowhere. They'll win a title at some point. They had a great season. 31-1 is nothing to scoff at. Look, it's just a hard thing to go 32 games and not lose once. We've seen excellent teams that weren't able to do it. That Kentucky team a few years ago, I've talked about them before, but they looked like they were unbeatable, and they couldn't do it. So I didn't think Gonzaga would pull it off. They didn't. We were right about that. The most underrated thing about the entire tournament and about the championship game was the fact that Baylor has a player whose name is Flo Thamba. I'm not kidding. Flo Thamba. Somebody get Sheck West on the phone. The rapper that made the song about Mo Bamba. You know that song? Mo Bamba. Now he could get a second one, get the remix on there with some Flow Thamba. That's hilarious to me. Flow Thamba Mo Bamba. And one at Texas and one at Baylor, both from the same state. That's pretty crazy. But Baylor ran away with it. Their defense, man, I haven't seen a college team that plays defense like that in a few years. Their defense was just tremendous all the way throughout the tournament. They put the clamps on Gonzaga. They made their best players look like that they were inferior. And they weren't. Gonzaga had a lot of talent. Timmy is a heck of a college basketball player, and he got locked down. He couldn't do very much. Kispert couldn't get open for three-point shots. Jalen Suggs looks pretty good. He's going to be a top 3 pick in the NBA draft. He might go number 1 overall. But Gonzaga just couldn't stack up with Baylor head-to-head, and really Scott Drew has done an amazing job at Baylor. He's done an amazing job. To take over a program, 13, 15 years ago, that was in one of the worst positions we've ever seen a college basketball program with the scandals that had unfolded there, and to stick with it. He had three losing seasons in a row to begin his tenure at Baylor. Baylor stuck with him. They knew it was a rebuild, and it paid off for him. A lot of times in college athletics, you get 2 or 3 years. If you don't show improvement, if you don't make the tournament, if you don't have success, then you're out. Baylor, props to you for hanging on to a good coach, for giving him time to build his program. It probably took him longer than he thought it would, but he's a national champion, and they're going to be good for years to come. They've already got some guys committed and some guys to come over in the transfer portal. They're losing a few important pieces, but they're going to be a top 10 team again next year. And they deserve all the accolades and all the recognition they're getting. Congratulations, Baylor Bears. I did not predict that you were going to win, but you proved me wrong, and you did it. Sticking with basketball, but moving to the NBA, we're about 15 games away from the playoffs, and things are starting to take shape. In the East, the 76ers have the top spot, followed by the Nets in the 2nd seed, the Bucks in the 3rd seed, the Knicks 4th, Hawks 5th, Celtics 6th, Heat 7th, Hornets 8th, Pacers 9th, and the Washington Wizards are in 10th. The NBA is doing this thing now where they have the play-in games kind of taken after the tournament, and so the 7 through 10 seed, they're going to have to play their way into the playoffs, and it's very interesting that Bradley Beal, who's having a phenomenal season, and the Wizards, Russell Westbrook, they're there at the 10. They're kind of hot right now. They're a team that teams don't want to play in that playoff series. In the play-in games, I wouldn't want to face a team that has a scorer like Bradley Beal. Really, the 4 through 7, the Knicks, Hawks, Celtics, and Heat, that's where there's room left for things to change heading into the playoffs. Those teams are only separated by a game or two. You could see a team like the Heat win 3 or 4 in a row and move up. That's what the Knicks have been doing as of late. They're on an 8-game winning streak. Tom Thibodeau and Julius Randle have things rolling there. And the Hawks have suffered a loss in Trae Young. He twisted his ankle. It looked pretty bad. X-rays were negative. He's going to miss 2 games. Hopefully he comes back soon. Really, this is the 76ers and the Nets. It's all about the 76ers and the Nets. Joel Embiid is having a terrific season. Can the 76ers actually put things together in the playoffs with Doc Rivers at the helm? Can they get over the hump? And can the Nets get healthy? The Nets haven't been healthy. If the Nets can put all 3 of their stars, Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant, on the court at the same time for the whole playoffs, I have no doubt that they come out of the East. They're the best team. They have the most talent. They play no defense, but they can outscore anybody, and they'll at least come out of the East, at least. But can they be healthy? They haven't been together. They haven't been healthy so far. And I got to tell you, if Kyrie Irving is the only healthy player going into the playoffs, they're not going to come out of the East. Somebody else will. If they can at least get James Harden or Kevin Durant on the court with Irving, they've got a puncher's chance. They've got just as good a chance as anybody else, especially if Durant is healthy. But if it's just Kyrie Irving, they will not come out of the East. Mark my words. But I got to tell you, the team that I'm most fascinated with is the Milwaukee Bucks. Because I've said it before, the Bucks are a team that should be better than they are. They're number 3 in the conference. They just beat the 76ers last night. They're going to put together another great record. They have a good supporting cast for Giannis. They have a good head coach in Mike Budenholzer. But in the playoffs, they disappoint. And they disappoint because Giannis can't shoot. And I know I'm tough on Giannis. I've said this before. But in the regular season, he dominates. 2 MVPs in a row. Nobody can stop Giannis going to the hoop. He's a physical freak of nature, one of the more athletic players in the league, but he can't shoot. And so when the playoffs come, they just pack the paint, They just stop him from going to the hole. They limit him. They make him into a jump shooter, and the Bucks fall short. So if the Bucks fall short again this playoff run, if they don't make it out of the East, you're going to see some changes. You're going to see Giannis start to get a little antsy, a little itchy. You might see a head coaching change in the next couple years. That's the team to watch for me, is the Bucks. Out in the West, the Utah Jazz have hung on to the top seed, followed by the Suns at 2. The Clippers are 3rd in the standing. The Denver Nuggets are 4th. Lakers 5th. Blazers 6th. Mavericks 7th. Grizzlies 8th. Spurs 9th. And the Warriors are 10th. So again, a lot of action between the 7 and 10 here, even in the West. The Mavericks, Grizzlies, Spurs, and Warriors are only separated by a couple of games. Anything can happen there. And behind the Warriors are Zion and the Pelicans. They're making a run. They're trying to get that 10th seed and get into the play-in games. The Jazz have kind of held things together from wire to wire. The Suns are an impressive team. Chris Paul has made all the difference in the world for that squad in changing the culture and helping them get over the hump. The Lakers are in a tough spot. They're in a tough spot. LeBron is out. Anthony Davis just came back, and he did not look good. He did not look good. The man scored 4 points and had 4 rebounds. Missed both of his free throws. Only shot 2 of them, missed them both. The Lakers are in danger. They're in danger of slipping from 5th down to 7th and having to be in the play-in games. The Lakers do not want to be in the play-in games. LeBron James should be coming back, should get a good rest and be ready for the playoffs. But if Anthony Davis doesn't pick it up, if LeBron James isn't healthy, if they have to play in the play-in games, things could get dicey in Los Angeles. Things could get dicey. I'm very curious to see what happens with the Jazz in the playoffs. They have been the best three-point shooting team in the league this year. They play really good team basketball, really good defense, but they haven't succeeded in the playoffs yet. They made leaps and bounds last year. Spider Mitchell did some great things in the bubble. They'll have home court throughout, but can they get over the hump? Are the Suns for real? Will the Clippers put together some chemistry? Because even though they're 3rd in the West, chemistry is the reason they lost last year, and they haven't shown a lot of it this year either. They've been pretty inconsistent. I don't know what team's going to come out of the West. I don't know that I'll put my money on the Jazz. If the Lakers are healthy, I think that they'll come out of the West. I predicted them to be the NBA champions at the beginning of the year, and I'm not ready to give up on that yet. But it's going to be interesting to watch. And as far as scoring goes, Steph Curry is now leading the league in scoring at 31.1 points a game. Bradley Beal is second at 31 points even. Luka Doncic, 28.7 points. Damian Lillard, 28.6 points a game. And Giannis rounds out the top 5 at 28.5. And really, we're down to 3 guys when it comes to the MVP race. We're down to Jokic, the dad bod god, as he's been called recently on social media. I think that's one of the better nicknames in the league. Joel Embiid, and Steph Curry. Now look, Jokic is probably going to win the MVP. I think people have pretty much settled on Jokic for MVP, all of the sports writers and those that have a vote. He's had a phenomenal year, there's no doubt about it. Jamal Murray has gone down, and he's kept things afloat for the Nuggets. He's had a great year. He's scoring, he's rebounding, he's assisting. He's not just the best passing big man in the league, he's one of the best passers in the league. I think last time I checked, he was top 5 in assists in the league as a starting center in the NBA. That's some rare air. The man routinely leads them in scoring, rebounding, and assists in games, and he's had a lot of triple-doubles. He's playing really well for the Nuggets. So I get all the MVP hype for him. Joel Embiid at times has been dominant. He's missed games. He's been inconsistent at times, but his stamina and his conditioning seemed to be a lot better this year, which has helped him. But if I had a vote, I don't. But if I did, my vote would go to Steph Curry. It really would. My vote would go to Steph Curry. I know that the Warriors are 10th in the West, and it's really hard for people to conceive of giving an MVP award to a player who plays for a 10th place team, or even if they get to the 8th seed, giving an MVP award to a guy on an 8th seeded team that barely squeaks into the playoffs. But the things that this man has been doing this season are phenomenal. The way that Steph Curry has dominated lately, the streak that he just went on of like 11 or 12 games in a row scoring over 30 points, the fact that he is the oldest player in NBA history The only player in NBA history 32 years or older to have multiple 50-point games in a season. He set his career high at 62. He had a game where he scored, I think, 53 or 57. He's just been lights out. I mean, historic. He's already the best shooter in the history of the game, but he's had an historic shooting streak even for him. And he's making his team better. He's raising the ceiling. I know that sounds funny when they're in 10th place. Without Steph Curry, if you take him off that roster, they're in the lottery. They're in the lottery. There's no Klay Thompson. Kent Bazemore is their starting shooting guard. And they've had injuries even to their role players. They've had no consistency from their bench because they've had guys hurt the entire season. Guys in and out of the lineup the entire season. James Wiseman out for the rest of the season. And Steph Curry's kept them afloat. He's kept them barely above 500. He's kept them in the playoff picture. He leads the league in three-pointers made. He leads the league in scoring. He's top 25 in assists. He's top 30 in steals. And Steph Curry is having one of his very best seasons of his career at age 32 or 33. And he deserves a lot more attention than he's getting. People are saying, well, it's a nice story, but clearly Jokic is the MVP. Or it's a nice story, but Joel Embiid is on the number one team in the East. Steph Curry is doing what he's doing in the Western Conference. It's a lot more competitive. Steph Curry is showing up night after night after night. He's played through injuries, and he's dominating. He's the most dominant player in the league this year. He's reminding people who he is. He's a top 3 or 4 player in the league. He's a top 10 player of all time. And if I had to vote for MVP, it would go to Steph Curry. I'm excited tonight. The Warriors and the Nuggets face up and play against each other. So you'll have the Dad Bod God versus Steph Curry, Chef Curry, and we'll see what happens in that matchup. On next week's show, we will talk NFL draft. We're 1 week away from the NFL draft. According to so-called draft experts, the first 3 picks are basically solidified. What we're hearing is that Trevor Lawrence will go to the Jags with the top overall pick. The second pick will be Zach Wilson from BYU to the Jets, and the third, Mac Jones from Alabama to the 49ers. Experts are saying the top 3 picks will all be quarterbacks, and I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I think that at least one of those picks is a smokescreen. I think that there's going to be a surprise in there, maybe some trades. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll talk about it. We'll chop it up next week. But we're hearing Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, and Mac Jones, and I'm just not buying it. It'll be fun to keep an eye on that and see what happens. So come back next week, tune in, and we'll talk about the draft together. That's all for the world of sports this week. We now go to the world of the paranormal. For our first story in the world of the paranormal, we take you to prehistoric Florida. Woman claims security camera caught small dinosaur running through her backyard. It can run fast. A Florida woman is claiming that her security camera captured a baby dinosaur running across her yard in the early morning of April 18th. Homeowner Christina Ryan has divided social media after sharing her security camera footage with Fox 35 of Orlando. Any animal we can come up with that would be walking at 3:40 in the morning wouldn't walk this way, she explained to the outlet. Maybe I've watched Jurassic Park too many times, but I see a raptor or some other small dinosaur. Ryan went on to disagree with viewers who suggested it was some type of bird. Whatever it is appears to have front legs, she said. I'm sticking with raptor. Commenters seemed split as to whether it was a runaway pet or one of Florida's 15 species of native lizards. I used to live in Clearwater and have seen some of these lizards running on their back legs, one commenter wrote. They're big, alert, active lizards that are quite common along the canal banks in suburban areas. It's a dog with a jacket, another claimed. If you pause or slow it down, you can see the leash trailing behind it. It looks like a small gator to me, another concluded. They can run fast too. I like how in-depth this commenter went on describing the lizards of Florida. They are big, alert, active lizards. That man should break down the NFL draft. He is big, alert, and an active defensive end with a high motor. These lizards have a high motor. I'm looking at the video right now, and you got to look this up. I don't know what it is. It is kind of weird. It is bizarre. I can see how she looks at it and thinks baby raptor, but probably not a dinosaur. Just my opinion. Just throwing my 2 cents out there. Probably not a dinosaur. I think it could be a chicken. I don't know if anybody suggested that. It looks like maybe it could be a chicken to me. Mrs. Christina Ryan needs to understand that birds do have front legs, by the way. But it is definitely weird and definitely strange. And I'm not sure what it is. It could be a skunk. I guess it could be a lizard. I don't see a dog. But probably not a raptor. Look this video up online. Email us at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Let us know what you see, what you think is going on here. Definitely a weird story. From prehistoric Florida, we go to Germany, the UK, and the human mind. False memories can be planted and then reversed, researchers find. And that is terrifying. German study points to possible techniques for recognizing and correcting erroneous recollections. Researchers in Germany and the UK said that they were able to plant false memories and then help study volunteers root them out, work that suggests potential remedies to erase the problem of erroneous recollections. The scientists used interviews to convince some study subjects that they had undergone childhood events that didn't happen to them, such as getting lost or being in a car accident, according to a report published Monday in the scientific journal Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Then the researchers said they used other interview techniques that prompted the volunteers to reassess the memories and help realize they might be false or misremembered. So let me get this straight. They did a study in which they intentionally implanted false memories into people's minds, and then also helped the people understand that the memories were in fact false and had been implanted into their minds. Seems a bit circular. Seems like maybe a waste of time, and also terrifying. The work confirms previous research on the malleability of memories while pointing to potential techniques for recognizing and rooting them out. What we can show in principle is that it's possible to empower people to really identify what might be a false memory, said Aline Oberburst, the study's lead author who now leads the Department of Media Psychology at the University of Hagen in Germany. Scientists have long studied the fallibility of human memory. The findings confirm previous research, psychologists and cognitive scientists said, though they cautioned about its real-world potential since the study was conducted among a relatively small number of subjects in a lab over a few weeks, and its finding might be hard to apply to an individual person. Some research suggests that true memories tend to be stronger for people than false ones, Nancy Dennis, a memory researcher and an associate professor of psychology at Penn State University, said. Yet people can also have vivid false memories or weaker true memories, making them difficult to tease apart on an individual basis. The hard part is when you want to take someone on that witness stand or therapist's office and want to figure out if the particular memory is true or false, said Dr. Dennis, who wasn't involved in the study. Then why are we quoting Dr. Dennis? Why is she giving her opinion? She was not involved in the study. False memory research has been controversial, no joke, and it's terrifying. Cognitive scientists and psychologists often disagree on how easily it is to develop false memories and how often that occurs. It has also been controversial partly because police investigations and court proceedings rely on quality of memories, which is why it's terrifying. Some psychologists express concerns that people can be cajoled into confessing crimes they didn't commit, true, or into making incorrect accusations. Meantime, others say the bigger problem is that the defendants often point to false memory research to discredit testimony from real victims or eyewitnesses and get allegations dismissed. In the new study, researchers sought to prove what they said was a relatively unexplored area of research: how to undo false memories. That's scary. That's a scary thing, that they were able to sit these people down over the span of a few weeks in the lab and just convince them that when they were a child, they had been in a car wreck that actually never happened. After those interviews, fewer study subjects subscribed to the fake memories, though a few people still described the false memories in detail, the study found. Overall, volunteers had more confidence in their true memories and described them in fuller detail than the memories that were false, the study found. And while belief in the fake incidents decreased after the final two interviews, faith in the real memories remained relatively intact. They just confusing people. They out here, it's their job. They got a grant to do a study to confuse people. We don't need more confusion in this world. Plenty of us are as confused as we could already be. From the human mind, we go to the History Channel. Ancient Alien Star says if that UFO is from outer space, aliens are way ahead of us. No joke. Dr. Michio Kaku, that's his name. Dr. Michio Kaku, one of the stars of the History Channel's Ancient Aliens, says the U.S. government's admission of a UFO means that there are top secret military weapons in use, or that aliens are way smarter than we are. Yeah, I'd say so. The popular physicist tells TMZ the idea of extraterrestrial visitation is no longer exclusive to tinfoil hat-wearing crackpots and drunks. It's something we all should accept as a real possibility. But here's the comforting, or maybe disappointing part, depending on your point of view. Kaku says if the Navy pilot's UFO sighting was indeed an alien spacecraft, it means Earthlings are totally useless to them. You have to see him break it down, but it sounds like those of us who are scared of an alien invasion don't have to worry, because they would have killed us all by now if that's what they wanted to do. On the flip side, the author of The God Equation believes that humans will make contact with an alien civilization within the century due to our own advancing technology. He says that process could be sped up greatly if someone gets abducted by aliens. Kaku has some sound advice if it happens to you. Seriously. So this man who is an expert, he says, hey, if these UFOs are legit, they have technology that we do not. Thank you for your input, Mr. Kaku. We could not have figured that out without you. In other news, the sun is hot, ice is cold, and today is Friday. Yeah, I would say the aliens have technology that we do not. And I would say that Mr. Kaku, he should have somebody that is a little bit better at explaining things, help him out. Maybe he could get with my boy, Cord Overton. Get you some coaching from Cord Overton. In our last story in the world of the paranormal, we go to the land of Oz. Was the Wizard of Oz cursed? The truth behind the dark stories about the Judy Garland classic. Thursday makes 80 years since the August 15, 1939 Hollywood premiere of the film classic The Wizard of Oz, the story of a tornado that hits Kansas and transports a young girl named Dorothy, played by Judy Garland, to a magical place called Oz, where she embarks on a journey to track down the wizard who can help her go home. The Hollywood studio MGM had pulled out all the stops for the movie, spending $3 million, about $55 million today, desperate to match the commercial success of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And it worked. The film won 2 Academy Awards for its music. Over the Rainbow won Best Original Song and made Judy Garland famous, in addition to earning nominations for Best Picture, Best Cinematography, Art Direction, and Special Effects. Commercially speaking, it made decent money when it was released, but made even more money after CBS aired it for the first time on November 3, 1956. By 1967, Time could declare that it had become the most popular single film property in the history of U.S. television. The movie had made Garland a national legend, the magazine continued. But despite its commercial success, The Wizard of Oz is seen by some as cursed. There were so many serious accidents on set that those Oscar-nominated special effects almost cost cast members their lives, from the 2 actors playing winged monkeys crashing to the ground when the wires that hoisted them up in the air broke, to the Wicked Witch of the West stunt double, Betty Donko, injuring her left leg when the broomstick exploded. Some of these special effects had never been done before, says Al-Jean Harmetz, a former New York Times Hollywood correspondent who wrote The Making of the Wizard of Oz, which revealed the disastrous filmmaking process. There were no unions at that time. Stars and lesser players were indentured servants for studios. But not everything you may have heard about the problems on the set is true. I think it had basis in truth, and it was magnified, says Ann Edwards, author of Judy Garland, a biography. So here's what's real, and here's the myth and some of the most popular theories. True, the makeup made actors sick. Buddy Ebsen was originally cast as the Tin Man, but he was essentially poisoned by the makeup he wore, which was made of pure aluminum dust. 9 days after filming started, he was hospitalized, sitting under an oxygen tent. When he was not getting better fast enough, the filmmakers hired Jack Haley to be the Tin Man instead. This time, instead of applying the aluminum powder, the makeup artist mixed it into a paste and painted it on him. He did develop an infection in his right eye that needed medical attention, but it ended up being treatable. Man, who knew the Tin Man job was so difficult and so treacherous? If he only had a brain. Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch of the West and was the one who tipped Harmitz off to the turmoil on set more than 3 decades later for her 1977 book, got burns, and the makeup artist had to rush to remove her copper makeup so that it wouldn't seep through her wounds and become toxic. Unlike Epson, she didn't get fired because they could live without her on the set for several more weeks. Y'all need to stop making makeup out of toxic materials. Maybe don't put metal, dust, and powder on people's face. Just an idea. False. An actor who played a munchkin hung himself on set. In a scene where Dorothy, the Scarecrow, and the Tin Man are skipping down the yellow brick road singing "We're Off to See the Wizard, the Wonderful Wizard of Oz," some think the dark moving figure hanging from a tree in the background is an actor who hung himself on set. More likely, it's one of the exotic birds that the filmmakers borrowed from the Los Angeles Zoo in order to create a wilderness setting, according to the fact-checking website Snopes.com. The rumor has been circulating since around 1989, the time of the 50th anniversary of the film's release. I do not like the fact that it says "more likely." I feel like whether or not someone hung themselves on set should be a known fact. Either they did or they did not. It should not be more than likely it was an exotic bird. Was someone hanging from a tree on set, or were they not? That seems like something that you want to get to the bottom of. True, someone stepped on Toto. Oh no. An actor playing one of the Wicked Witch of the West soldiers accidentally jumped on top of Dorothy's Toto. Carl Spitz, the dog trainer on set, told Harmitz. The dog, a female Cairn Terrier named Terry, sprained its foot, and Spitz had to get a canine double. Terry did recover and returned to the set a few weeks later. That's good. Probably false. Judy Garland was molested by actors playing munchkins. In a memoir by Judy Garland's third husband, Sid Luft, published posthumously in 2017, he writes that after bar hopping in Culver City, the actors who played the Munchkins would make Judy's life miserable by putting their hands under her dress. This is a family show. What are we doing? Harmitz said it's true that the actors would go drinking near the Culver City hotel where they stayed, but she says their interactions with Garland did not rise to the level of what Luft described. Nobody on the movie ever saw or heard of a Munchkin assaulting her in any way, says Harmitz. Garland did say the drinking was annoying in an interview with talk show host Jack Parr, but experts on Garland's life say that her rant about being scarred by the rowdy behavior on set may have been a deflection from the real damage she suffered during the time at the hands of the studio. Garland was only 16 when she made The Wizard of Oz, and her struggles with depression and disordered eating started at an even earlier age and continued for the rest of her life. She claimed that the studio executives gave her uppers and sleeping pills so she could keep up with the demanding pace of show business. She struggled with drug addiction and attempted suicide several times before she died of an accidental overdose on June 22, 1969, at just 47 years old. That's tragic. If she was a normal kid allowed to go to a normal school and not come into the industry until she was an adult, says Harmitz, I doubt the tragedy that became her life in the last years would have happened. So what do you think, my tools? Was the set of Wizard of Oz cursed? Some of these things seem to be partially true. Some of them we can definitely rule out. This is something that I have heard for a long time, the urban legends surrounding the filming of this show, the alleged hanging of one of the actors, the different hauntings and things that were happening that different people have claimed. It seems more likely that those things are exaggerated and not true, but I would love to hear what you think. Email us, let us know, share with us the stories that you have heard about the Wizard of Oz. Email us at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Get at us. Let us know what you think. I was always scared of those flying monkeys. When I was a kid, those were terrifying to me. I thought that was the scariest thing in the world. Judy Garland was a tremendously talented actress. Her life devolved into tragedy and ended tragically. It would have been awesome to see what she could have done with the rest of her life and career. Rest in peace to her. That's all for this week. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. I can't either. It's back in the house and out of the shed for me. Thanks again for listening to episode 11. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, and review. It really does help. If you have any paranormal experiences, opinions about sports or politics that you'd like to share, you can reach the show at intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. Again, that's intheshedwithwes@gmail.com. I might even read it on air. Look for us on Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Tune in again next week when we'll hit the headlines, talk NFL draft, and dive headfirst into the Flat Earth conspiracy. This has been In the Shed with Wes Anderson, the best news show in the land covering politics, sports, and the paranormal. Have an adventurous and fulfilling weekend. I'll catch you tools later. Peace out, Boy Scout. Meemaw, we made it!